not only am I setting you free, I'm setting myself free to live this life that God has provided for me to live. It doesn't happen quickly. It's going to take time and effort. And it doesn't mean that I can't have opinions and perspectives. And it doesn't mean that I can't express those opinions and perspectives. I just can't force those things on somebody else. When it comes to this need for control, what can I do? First thing I need to do is, if I can, I need to identify the root cause of it. What is at the core of this? Why is it that I feel this need for control? Why is it that I become anxious or become angry when I feel like things aren't going the way that I want them to, or people aren't responding in the way that I think they should? Why do I feel like I need to manage other people's actions and attitudes and words? What's the source of that? And it could be a variety of different things. It could be past experiences. I was treated like that, and now I've just kind of developed that trait myself. Maybe it was the home that I was brought up in. Maybe there was a lot of battle for control in the home that I grew up in. Maybe that's what's been modeled for me, either by, again, the home that I grew up in or the friends that I hang out with. And this is just what we do. This is just how people act. Maybe there's a fear of losing the relationship. And so I want to make sure to hold on to that person, and I'm just doing it in an unhealthy way. Maybe there's a fear of failure. I don't want people to see my flaws. I don't want to mess up. And so if I stay in control of this person and everything goes the way that I want it to, we'll have success. There's a lot of different reasons why I might be feeling this desire, this need for control, but I need to figure out what that is. What's at the root of this? Going back to the Old Testament again, there was a time when God's people had completely walked away from him. They were doing ungodly things or worshiping other guys, doing things that God never wanted them to do. And God got fed up with it enough that he allowed another nation to come in and conquer them, destroy their cities, take them captive, ship them off to another country. There's a prophet named Jeremiah that witnessed this whole thing. He tried to warn the people ahead of time. This is what's on the horizon. You're about to experience some really bad consequences to the choices that you've been making. And then he witnessed the destruction that took place. And he writes a book in the Old Testament that we probably skim past a lot. It's a book called Lamentations, where Jeremiah is lamenting. He is crying over what has happened to his people. And as he's writing these things down for his people, these things that are on his heart, he recognizes that he basically tells his own people, we need to sit down and recognize and get to the root cause of why we are where we are. We are now destroyed. We are now captives. We are now living in a land that's not our own. Why? What's the source of that? How did we get here? And he says in Lamentations chapter 3 and verse 40, let's examine our ways and test them, and let's return to the Lord. In other words, let's take an honest look at ourselves and let's find out what got us to where we are now, and then let's try to get back to where we were supposed to be. And I think that principle applies to me when I'm trying to discover why it is that I have this need for control. I need to examine myself. What's at the core of this? What started me on this path? What's the source of it? So that I can get to where I need to be, so that I can start letting go of that desire for control, so that I can start improving those relationships. I need to get to where I need to be, but the way for me to get there is to find out how I got here. Does that make sense? And I may need help with that. I may need to go to some counseling, to some therapy. I may need to find some online resources. I may need to have an honest conversation with my spouse or my family member and help me walk through this. Help me figure this out. I may not be able to discover that all on my own, but I need to figure it out. I need to at least make an attempt to find out what is the root cause of my desire for control, for my desire to control other people. What's the source of that? Number 2. Once I start figuring out what the root cause of it is, then I need to accept the things that I can control and let go of the things that I can't. I know that's a whole lot easier said than done. And it sounds pretty simple, right? Well, just accept what you can control and let go of what you can't. Oh, okay. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen with a snap of the fingers. This takes time. It takes effort. But what are the things that I actually have control over? Let me give you a quick list. I can control my emotions, what I choose to think about, how hard I work. I can control my goals, my attitude, my words, my physical health, my mental health, my spiritual health. You recognize a common theme there? I can control me. I can control my thoughts. I can control my actions. I can't control yours. Now, I may have bought into the illusion that I can, but I can't. I can only control me. And I need to accept that. And I need to let go of the desire to control what I can't control. I hope I say this in the right way. Parents, you can't control your kids. Now, you can teach, you can guide, you can instruct, you can set boundaries, you can discipline, you can give consequences. But ultimately, they're going to make choices that sometimes are going to be exactly what you hope they would do. And sometimes they're not going to do exactly what you want them to do, in spite of all of your efforts. I need to be okay with that. There's still consequences that can happen. There's still discipline that can take place. But I don't need to get frustrated. I don't need to try to hold my kids under my thumb and make sure that they live their lives and be exactly the kind of person that I want them to be. Because all that is going to create is disharmony and hurt and anger and resentment for both of us. Husbands, wives, you can't control your spouse. You can communicate, you can share your feelings, you can be honest about the things that are frustrating you or things you wish were different. You can help, you can encourage, but you can't control your spouse. And you shouldn't try to. You can control you. And y'all can work together to be a better we. But all I can control is me. Folks, we can't control our friends. We can't control our coworkers. We can't control the person that we're in this dating relationship with. We can communicate. We can share. We can be honest. We can sometimes, even if necessary, walk away from that connection. But I can't control that other person. I need to accept that. Because otherwise, I'm just going to continue in this cycle of frustration and anger and resentment and distrust. Because you're not being what I want you to be. You're not saying what I want you to say. You're not doing what I know you should be doing. I need to let go of that. I shared this verse with you a few weeks ago, and I want to share it again in Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 1. The author of Hebrews says, let's throw off everything. Throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked for us. What are the things that are tying you down right now? What are the things that are weighing you down? It could be sin. It could be guilt. It could be consequences to past choices. There's a lot of things that can keep us from freely running this race of life that God has carved out for us. And the author of Hebrews says, whatever it is, man, throw it off. Pull it off, get rid of it, chunk it. And I think that includes these hurtful desires, like the desire for control. Get rid of that. Let go of it. So that not only am I setting you free, I'm setting myself free to live this life that God has provided for me to live. Again, it doesn't happen quickly. It's going to take time and effort. And it doesn't mean that I can't have opinions and perspectives. And it doesn't mean that I can't express those opinions and perspectives. I just can't force those things on somebody else. And again, this may also take some help, some counseling, some therapy, some help from an outside source. But I have to make it a habit. It has to become a habit on my part, even if it doesn't come naturally, to accept the things I can control and let go of the things that I can't.